If you thought you loved pasta before, wait until you try homemade pasta. Let's get started. For the best homemade pasta, Italian 00 flour is considered the gold standard for pasta dough. It'll give you the best tender and chewy pasta consistency that still has a nice bite to it. I have tried this with an unbleached all-purpose flour and it still works, but the 00 flour is definitely best, and I will link to the one that I used in the recipe notes. It's important to measure flour correctly, so you can either spoon it into the measuring cup and level off the top, or use a kitchen scale if you have one. Now create a well in the center of your bowl and crack your eggs right into it. It is better to use eggs that are at room temperature because your dough will be easier to knead. We're going to use our hands to mix this together. Start stirring the flour from the sides of the well and work outward until the dough is thoroughly mixed and has come together into a mass. This is a pretty dry dough, but keep working at it and it will come together. Transfer that to a lightly floured surface and continue kneading by hand for about 5 minutes. When it's done, the dough should be smooth and flexible but no longer sticky to the touch. It does get less and less sticky as you knead it, so only add flour if it's really sticking to your hands. Shape the dough into a ball, then flatten it into a disc. Cover the dough with plastic wrap and let it rest at room temperature for at least 20 minutes or up to an hour. Giving it time to rest allows the gluten strands in the dough to relax and it'll be much easier to roll out. Once that dough is rested, unwrap it and use a bench scraper to cut it into 4 equal pieces. You're going to work with one piece of dough at a time and keep the rest of the dough covered with plastic wrap to prevent it from drying out. You'll want to keep a small bowl of flour on hand to keep your work surface generously dusted for this process. Lightly flatten your first piece of dough to fit through the roller. To roll out the pasta dough, you can do it by hand, but it's quite a bit of work. You can also use a freestanding pasta dough roller or a stand mixer attachment. I'll link to this attachment in the notes. Now make sure your pasta dough is floured on both sides, set the mixer to speed 2, and feed it through on the widest setting of your pasta roller. Now tri-fold your dough into thirds just like a letter and put it in through the machine again on the widest setting. Continue to keep your dough dusted with flour to ensure it doesn't stick to the roller. Do another letter fold and feed it through the machine again on the widest setting. Now just continue rolling the pasta dough through the machine without folding and adjust the rollers to a smaller setting with each pass through. Continue this process until you've reached your desired thickness. For pasta like fettuccine, I like to stop at setting 2. You'll notice the dough strips get longer and longer. If they get too long to manage, you can cut them in half for more manageable lengths. Honestly, this process is so therapeutic and fun for me. I just love seeing that strand of dough get longer and longer. Once you're done rolling out your dough, you do want to cut it into your desired length. Think about how long you want your noodles to be, and I prefer fettuccine about 10 to 12 inches long. This will prevent sticking to the pasta cutter and will keep the strands of pasta from sticking together. You'll get much cleaner cuts with a dusted dough. Switch to your desired pasta cutter, and I love that the set that I have comes with some options, so we're using the fettuccine cutter. Feed the dough into the top of the cutter and catch the noodles as they come out of the bottom. Once your noodles are cut, transfer those to a baking sheet that's dusted with semolina flour. Repeat the process with the remaining dough. As you set your noodles onto your dusted baking sheet, dust the top with more semolina flour. This will keep the noodles from sticking together. Repeat the process of folding, rolling, and cutting your noodles until all of your dough is gone. Let the pasta strands rest for about 20 minutes to dry out lightly. Then you're going to create little nests. This will make it much easier to store and freeze the pasta dough. To create the nests, lift a section of pasta strands, and as you lower them back onto the baking sheet, use a twisting motion. Because you've dusted the baking sheet and the pasta strands with semolina flour, it will keep the pasta strands from sticking together. Once you've formed your little nests, keep the pasta covered with a dry kitchen towel to keep it from drying out. There are so many different kinds of pastas you can make with this. If you want lasagna noodles, you can roll them a little thicker and then just don't cut out the noodles. Keep the sheets to make a homemade from scratch lasagna, or you can cut out angel hair or really thin noodles like these. There are so many options. Of course, today I made a double batch because I love keeping my freezer stocked with fresh homemade pasta. And any kind of strand noodles like these, you can make the little nests. It's just much easier to store and freeze them this way. To freeze homemade pasta, set it into the freezer right on the baking sheet and freeze for 1 hour or until the pasta is firm. Then simply transfer the frozen pasta nest to a freezer-safe zip bag or container and freeze it for up to 2 months. You can cook them directly from frozen. Here's how to cook them either fresh or from frozen. Bring a pot of water to boil and add some salt, then add your pasta, either fresh dough or frozen. As soon as the pasta goes in, give it a stir to keep the noodles from sticking together. Once the noodles are at a boil, continue cooking for 2 to 4 minutes or until the noodles are at your desired tenderness. Depending on how you're preparing it, it's nice to reserve a little bit of the pasta cooking water to add to your sauce. I do find that cooking frozen noodles takes slightly longer to get rid of any eggy taste. Transfer the noodles to your serving dish, then butter them up and enjoy or add whatever is your favorite pasta sauce. If you are adding a sauce, make sure you don't rinse your noodles to ensure that the sauce coats the noodles nicely. Oh my goodness, this is totally calling my name. Hot and fresh homemade pasta is just next level. And how I like it, I mean, there's so many different ways to serve it. You've got marinara sauce, and we have a great homemade marinara. You can toss it with a basil pesto. Also have a recipe for that, but just the simple way is one of my favorites. I like to add a little bit of butter, just drizzle that in. And it's important not to rinse the pasta, as we have learned, because it helps to cling to the sauce. The little bit of starch on the pasta, you want it there. Okay, so we've added the butter, and now we're gonna add Parmesan. And this is my opportunity to show off my new cheese grater. I love this thing. I love that it has a little cover here, and it has a seal around the top part, so if there's cheese left over, it doesn't get all dry. You can just store it in the fridge. I love that. Okay, so butter and lots of Parmesan cheese. Just grate that on while the noodles are hot, and then it kind of dissolves into the pasta. And also a little bit of reserve pasta water if you want, if it gets dry, or if you like it a little creamier, just a little bit of reserved pasta water is excellent here. And then just toss, toss, toss. And I like to add the cheese in layers so it doesn't get clumpy as I toss. This is almost easier in a big bowl. So if you're doing a big batch, use a big mixing bowl and just kind of toss it quickly, and it gets like buttery, saucy, cheesy, so good. All while it's steaming hot, okay? Important. Oh my goodness, look at this. I'm one of those people where you don't want me to be the person to tell you when to stop adding cheese. You know, like when you go out to the restaurant and they're adding cheese and they say when. Don't ask me. I'll be quiet for a long time, awkwardly long. Yummers. Wow, so buttery and so hot and fresh. Oh my goodness. Come to mama. Look at that. It's almost creamy from the cheese and then a little bit of pasta water and butter. We're gonna dive right into this because mama is hungry. I love this. I love that you can make it ahead. It is freezer friendly. All you have to do is put the little nests on the baking sheet, simply pop it in your freezer, wait till it's solid. It takes about an hour, and then transfer everything into a freezer safe zip bag, and you've got fresh homemade pasta whenever you want it. So I like to make at least a double batch when I'm making this, so I've got a stash in the freezer. Let's twirl this up on my fork and let's go fancy. Let's use a spoon for twirling. Okay, this is the sophisticated route for twirly-whirling the pasta. Look at that. It's not always perfect. Okay, can you tell I'm happy? Oh my goodness. Come to mama. Wow. It's literally the ultimate in comfort food. I mean, if you thought you liked pasta and all you've ever had is store-bought dried pasta, you guys. It feels like I'm in a fancy restaurant eating pasta. It's so good. Homemade is just next level. It's kind of like the dough to pierogi. Like if you've tried a good pierogi dough, which we have a recipe for, then you will totally love this. It is just amazing. So many different ways to serve this. You won't stop having fun with this. And I want to know if you guys try any different shapes or cuts of pasta. The rollers that I have are great. They work well. You can get the brand, you can get the off-brand. It'll be fine. I think that's easier to have the stand mixer one than the one that's attached to your counter because you don't have to crank. You can just use your hands to catch the pasta. It's great. Okay, one more bite. They're so tender. Homemade pasta has so much great flavor. And I think it goes down easier. Like it doesn't sit heavy in your stomach, or not as much. Maybe that's just my perception. All right, I'm gonna go eat the rest of this. It's so good. I hope you guys try this. I hope you're excited to conquer something new in the new year. If you guys have any recipe requests, please let me know. Also, if you haven't already purchased our new cookbook, I will leave a link to that in the notes. There's tons of great recipes in here, including some of my all-time favorite pasta recipes. Let me know if you spotted Sharky. Let me know in the comments where you saw him, and we will see you on the next episode of Natasha's Kitchen. I'm gonna go enjoy this very much.